Special class. Slowly raising the quest window, I could see that a completed quest was indeed waiting for me. Quest complete. Quest tutorials: Northern Forest Conquest. Conquer the Northern Forest. 1/1. Impressive. You have succeeded with your clumsy strategy on repelling the group of the Northern Forest. A special class has opened. The war is won, but you have lost the battle. A new special class has opened especially for you. You have successfully completed the quest. The quest reward is rank up. Please select from the following. 1. Intermediate Orc Warrior. 2. Orc Swordsman. 3. Orc Assassin. Special 1. Orc Commander. Special 2. Orc Gladiator. There were 2 special options that opened this time. As expected, there were none that allowed me to evolve into a higher species. However, seeing the option of an Orc Intermediate Warrior, I was fine with it. In this kind of case, I need to choose carefully. I slowly began to ponder. First, the Commander option was immediately excluded. The Orc Assassin as well. There was no particular reason necessarily, but it was just that I was more familiar with the sword. If you think about it, I might grow stronger through the path of a swordsman. But there were some limitations. From the start, I had no talent in swordsmanship. Even though it was a path I had traversed once, it was still somewhat hesitating. I slowly began to read about the special. Special 2. Orc Gladiator. Fighting for an Orc Gladiator is life. Long ago, when the humans had enslaved the Greenskins, the Orc Gladiators that fought in the Colosseum was one of the most popular events. In the Colosseum, the Orc Gladiators fought for survival rather than honor. Increases the proficiency on all weapons you use. Not bad. The description alone wasn't bad at all. Rather, it was quite decent. The one that I liked the most was that the gladiators prioritized survival over honor. It was also a plus that my class could wield a variety of weapons. It might be a bit ambiguous, but in my previous life, fighting with only a sword was quite peculiar. More precisely, once I choose the gladiator class, the high-level class would be even more appealing, though I do have to confirm it once I evolve into the intermediate class. Although the commander class wasn't something that I was a kin of, I thought it wouldn't hurt to read the class description as well. So I decided to look at it. Special 1. Orc Commander. Commanding the Greenskins is the greatest honor for an Orc. The Greenskin clan that gets commanded by an Orc commander will have its battle prowess increased. As a commander, rather than creating a buff for the army, more precisely, the Greenskins will be able to listen to orders easily. Increases the proficiency of the sword. It was a class so fine that I wondered why I haven't read the description to this day. I even had a plan, so being a commander wouldn't be bad at all. But there was no denying that it was a class that would be less effective than the gladiator as you evolve. Although missing out on the increased sword proficiency was regrettable, but the gladiator class had much more features. I didn't hesitate twice and decided. With the word gladiator floating around in my mind, soon I could feel my body shaking. But it wasn't a change as great as when I had evolved from a goblin to a hobgoblin, and not as painful from a hobgoblin to an orc. The instantaneous shift in my body soon stopped, and I could realize that my body had changed despite lying down on the floor. I slowly gripped my fist tightly. There's no mistake. I became stronger. What emerged from my head was the basic proficiencies of the usage of the spear, sword, axe, and the 12-handed sword. Although the rest will take effort and training, but I was quite pleased with the selection. The fact that I could understand all the basic weapons to a certain degree will aid me aiming for critical points in a battle against opponents of all varieties. While I was gripping my fist tightly like that, Young-Hin stared at me and opened her mouth. So you've evolved. MMHM. It's good. Though it's basic armor, on one shoulder, a piece of armor was added. It seems there was no weapon gifted. Being wounded, it was extremely uncomfortable to have the shoulder armor on, so I decided to take it off for the time being. As if she knew I was uncomfortable, Young-Hin was already taking it off my shoulder. Come to think of it, everyone had completed the quest as well. Come to think of it, both of you have completed the quest. Is there anything different? Meve answered first to my question. With quite a triumphant face, she began to speak. Yes, Captain. I evolved into a fairy sprite archer. Oh. I've evolved into a plant magician. No matter how you think of it, it seems that both had attained special classes. Though it wasn't like special classes were necessarily greater or more effective than the other ordinary evolutions, to have both of them evolve into special classes. The results of this war was quite fruitful. How's the sprite archer? Meve started to stare at the sky after listening to my words. She was probably checking on what kind of class the sprite archer was. From what was written, it seems that among the fairy race, the elite archers were called sprite archers, I think. Though I'm not sure, but apparently magic proficiency is increased as well. There are a few spells, and I could feel my mana increase, so I guess it's a good thing. MMHM. You did well. Just from the explanation, I could tell that it was quite similar to the human's magic archer. I had thought there would be a difference among the two classes since she said sprite archer instead of magic archer. But, as for me likewise, it was a class that you needed to advance to the intermediate in order to precisely confirm the effectivity of the class, I think. How's the plant magician? I'm not sure if there's a huge difference from before. Nothing like intermediate magician appeared, but just a plant magician option. Was there? I didn't have a choice. Ah. It was probably due to the fact that she lacked experience. Despite completing the quest, the fact that she couldn't evolve into the intermediate class could only be from her lack of right to evolve at her current state. But, a plant magician wasn't bad at all. Since her element is of the plants, her magical power will be increased, and with her heightened proficiency, it will be easier for her to use spells than an ordinary magician. I think it's fine. Yes. Yes. I haven't heard of it directly, but I'm sure that the other clan members have become quite stronger. Especially the loyal 5 goblin siblings I was curious of, but since they were faces I would see once I healed, I decided to take it slowly. My body was still a bit sleepy. I slowly closed my eyes, and the rest of the time flowed by. The duration of the tutorial is precisely 30 minutes remaining. The tutorial objective is to survive for 30 minutes. The tutorial was coming to an end. Even though I nearly died, the orc's recovery was quite good. Or maybe it was that old elder goblin shaman skills that were quite good. Kerr. Your body is quite strong. You're nearly fully recovered. Kayuk. The pain in my chest is still throbbing. If it were the other green skins, they would have definitely died. You have good luck. I remembered that the elder that was treating me had created a clan from the aftermath of the battle. Dark Moon Clan. Though I had thought that he wouldn't be of much aid, after evolving into a shaman, the true value of his class was revealed. Being an intermediate shaman after completing the quest, the green skins that believed in shamanism revered him quite a bit. If it wasn't for this elder goblin shaman, Dark Moon, it would have taken longer to recover. Elder, thank you. Do you happen to know what happens once the tutorial ends? This morning, I could hear God's voice. Not just me, but all the other green skins had all heard of it. I wouldn't know either, though I'm not exactly sure, but I think that the setting of where we are will change. Dark Moon, you're a shaman, right? Do you not know what will happen? Kayuk. TCH. Just because you're a shaman doesn't mean you know everything. Maybe I'll learn of it later. Today's treatment ends here. Then, I will take my leave. Like that, the Dark Moon Elder left outside. Usually, once the tutorial ends, after the settlement, all are immediately transported to the continent. The settlement is the review stage where you are graded from the deeds you accomplished in the tutorial, and are able to take useful things bought from the item store to the continent. Anyone can open the item store once you move to the continent, which is quite important. For humans, you can buy money with points, but I started to be curious of how things will turn out for green skins who don't have something like currency. In my previous life, after the tutorial, I wasn't able to purchase anything. From what I've heard, the item store that appears when the tutorial ends has a lot more useful items than the one that you could open in the continent. Of course item-wise, the items that you can obtain from dungeons are much more effective. However, as one that will land on the continent right away, the difference between being empty-handed and equipping basic equipment is quite large. I know better than anyone as someone who landed on the continent empty-handed. I experienced it together with Quasology. As for humans, you must receive education once you're on the continent after the tutorial ends. Come to think of it, although it's education by word, in reality, it was a course intended to select and choose able people. I'm not sure how things will transpire among the monsters, but from how clans don't touch or interfere with each other, I think there won't be such a thing as education here. No, there's a great chance for it not to happen. Rather, it'll be more of a larger clan absorbing the smaller clans, or making alliances. Of course, the seniors that are already on the continent are definitely strong. As green skins that pride themselves on honor more than anything else, there shouldn't be any needless events. While I was thinking of such useless thoughts, I walked out. Kayuk. In a long while, I saw the Blood Dagger clan members. Seeing the ratio of hobgoblins were higher than goblins, I could feel that their battle prowess has increased. It's the captain. It's the Blood Dagger. It's the Blood Dagger who has lost his honor. The captain has revived. The clan members welcomed me with screams once I appeared. In front of me was Younghyun, Meave, and the loyal 5 goblin siblings. The first and second had chosen orcs, while the rest of the 3 female goblins continued to stay as goblins. It seems that the equipment on them had changed accordingly to something of a swordsman, or maybe a hammer warrior. Whether it was due to the many evolutions, seeing those cute fellas pounding their chests towards me was extremely cute. Seeing the cheers of the goblins from my appearance, I decided to reply to them by pounding my chest as well. Victory. For victory only. For Blood Dagger. For the despicable Blood Dagger clan. The duration of the tutorial has ended. For settlement, after moving you to the store, you will be soon transported to the continent. Listening to their cheers, I took my second step into the continent. Welcome to all that survived the tutorial. This is the item shop. Please purchase the necessary items before entering the continent. Orc Gladiator, the points of the Blood Dagger will be confirmed. Impressive. 10,000 points have been settled to Blood Dagger, who has accomplished remarkable achievements. Not bad. With this much, I should be able to purchase a few essential items, though I can't get one extremely remarkable. I began to look around my surroundings. It's called Item Store by name, but in truth, it was only a small store from my eyes. When I was a human, a beautiful young girl was managing the store, but in this case, it wasn't so. A very despicable-looking goblin was flipping a coin around as he stared at me. Hurry and choose quickly. I'm a very busy person, friend. I decided to answer with just a nod. Even if I were to speak, the goblin wouldn't answer. It's probably a rule as a manager, I think. As such, I began to peer in the small store. There were so many items in the store that I wouldn't have been even surprised if it were to collapse. I began to look at the merchandise one by one in my mind. Weapon store. Cheap grey sword 10 points. Flame bat 3000 points. Large grey sword too large to be called a sword 9000 points. An honourable orc's blood axe 15,000 points. I'm not sure myself, but the grey sword too large to be called a sword was very enticing. As much as 9,000 points. As I furtively brought the description up, the goblin manager began to bring the item towards me. A fearsome appearance. Truly this item was too large to be called a sword. Opening the info page, the description soon appeared. Large grey sword too large to be called a sword. A weapon used by the legendary orc mercenary, Kruka. Other than the fact that durability doesn't decrease, there are no other features. It seems there weren't any features. I swung the grey sword once around. I couldn't help but wonder if my weapon's reach was a bit longer, then maybe I could have attained victory against the Queen of the North. I probably could have landed a strike as well. It may be because of evolving into a gladiator, but the feeling of the sword wasn't bad at all. I thought that even if I didn't use a sword, I could block the Queen of the North's spear. Automatically, I began nodding my head. If I was a human, I probably couldn't have wielded this. But, let's skip over it for now. Although it's very enticing, there were still a lot of items to check. Passing the item section, I began to look towards the scrolls. Unique ability. HP increase 5,000 points. Pursuit 7,000 points. Flame spear 12,000 points. From the past, the one that I had attained, HP increase, was 5,000 points. Although it wasn't as bad as it looked, I had no intention of buying it. By looking at the section roughly, I could tell there were no special unique abilities. Since I could blossom a unique skill once I entered the continent, I naturally skipped over it. To be honest, the biggest reason was that there were no skills to my liking. Not sure if it's just my standards that were very high, but there were none that looked useful. The armor section was likewise. It was okay, but if I had gathered more than 10,000 points, then I could have purchased a very useful one. How unfortunate. So I turned over to the class change section. Class change. Orc 10,000 points. Lower demon 400,000 points. Ogre 500,000 points. I didn't have points even relatively close to those numbers, so I skipped over. The other goods looked good at first, but there was nothing I could purchase. I thought of buying a potion just in case, but that was all. In the end, I decided to look at the limited items that you could only attain from the tutorial. The item list that you can purchase from the tutorial castle's store. Blood-soaked dagger 500 points. Large grey sword too large to be called a sword. Baobab turtle spice set 20,000 points. Class evolution black orc 50,000 points. Unique ability Matten's desperate defense 900,000 points. There were quite a lot of items that stood out than I had expected. The most absurd one was the Baobab spice set. Though I'm not sure what that is, to sell it for a preposterous 20,000 points, I can't help but think that the people that would buy that set are nothing but fools. But the significant surprise was that the large grey sword too large to be called a sword could only be purchased here. Though there are no other benefits other than the durability not decreasing, but if you think about it, it was a huge advantage for your sword to not lose its sharpness. I called for it once more and swung it around, and determined that I could definitely wield this with my orc's strength. The evolution into a gladiator increased my proficiency with the grey sword as well. I must take this with me. As for points, I'll continue to earn them later on. Judging that there was no reason not to use my points, I made the decision to use all of my points. You have purchased the grey sword that is too large to be called a sword for 9,000 points. You have purchased the blood-soaked dagger for 500 points. You have purchased the tutorial store's potion for 500 points. Thank you for using it, friend. When I was a human, the cheap steel sword that I carried around for 10 years. It was a rusted item without a blade, and if I faced someone with good armor, it was one that couldn't even penetrate. As someone who didn't even try, saying this was quite funny, but I had really desired of obtaining useful equipment. Now seeing the great sword that was completely mine, I couldn't help but satisfactorily laugh. It felt as if I had attained a rare item in a game, but the fact that I could use this weapon directly brought a joy greater than I had thought. The black moonlight-colored white blade. Though it wasn't a sword larger than an orc, but it was one greater than the body of a hobgoblin. A leather belt was included with the item pouch on the right side, making me look as if I was actually a fame summoned. During my human period, that figure which I aspired to be. Before I realized, the edges of my lips rose. Since it was quite heavy, it will take some time to adjust to the weapon, but I had no problem with it. I can never say that I am talented. To be honest, it wasn't as terrible. There was the reason that my proficiency in all the weapons had increased as a gladiator. If not a sword, then with a dagger, if not a dagger then an axe, if not an axe, then an iron mace, if not an iron mace, then a grey sword, I can fight with a variety of weapons. Thus, that's the standard for the strong to achieve victory. That's the conclusion I came to after suffering defeat against the Queen of the North. Tightly gripping the steel sword, I began to hear a voice. The use of the store will end in 10 minutes. You will be transported to the continent after 10 minutes. As such, I took my first step into the continent. I could feel my body shift somewhere as the setting around me began to change. What soon came to my sight was a large jungle. The place where we were transported to was a place where someone had arranged quite artificially. When I was a human, we had received education in the middle of a center, so I had thought monsters would have something similar, but it seems that I was wrong. Blood Dagger Clan has reunited. Drake. 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 Seeing everyone's equipment change a bit, it definitely is reasonable to assume that everyone had bought something from the store. To see these guys with their not-so-bright minds purchase items was as if an unknown power had taken the time to teach them on the system of point exchange. It's a new sword. I bought a new bow as well. Giraik. Young Hyun was holding a staff I haven't seen before, and Meave had a new bow strung on her back as well. Though they didn't have as much points as me, it seems that they have received a decent amount of points. Amongst the clan, the one that stood out the most was definitely me. An extremely huge grey sword was on my back, so it's obvious how it would catch the attention of everyone. The playful goblins were snooping around me, busily at raising the sword. Our captain is definitely different. It's a huge large sword. It's the best weapon. The best weapon. There wasn't clamoring only happening on our side. At Gorf's direction, the goblins were jumping and screaming as well. Gorf clan chief Gorf's weapon is way more impressive. Giraik. I secretly turned my head towards the clamoring and saw 2 axes on Gorf's back. It was a weapon extremely suitable to him. Seeing no other equipment, it seems that he had invested all of his points on just those axes. Though I was curious of its features, I turned away for now. Currently, the priority was finding out what situation we are currently in. Once calming down the clan members, leaving Meave in charge, I approached Gorf and the other clan chiefs. Good that you've come. Bloodbagger, do you happen to know what this place is? If I had known, I wouldn't have walked over here. I don't know as well. Gorf, unlike before, this place is a wholly different place. To end up in a jungle from a place covered in snow. We did have food, but settling a camp in this place was quite ambiguous. As such, while we were discussing on our planned actions for the near future, it was suddenly then. Warrior. It's the warrior exam. To all the surviving greenskins. I began to hear a thunderous voice from somewhere. Duck. When I was a human, I had definitely received education. It seems that it was the same for monsters as well. If this exam is education, then this place is indeed an education center. The problem was that this exam was going to be done in the way of the greenskins, by fighting without holding back. Prepare for battle. Battle preparation. Blood Dagger Clan. Everyone prepare for battle. It's battle. The despicable Blood Dagger Clan's chief has declared war. Victory. Only victory. For Blood Dagger. Giraik. All the other clan chiefs hurriedly began preparing their clan members as well. The goblins who had always pounded those human-skin drums began drumming. Boom. 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 Kariuk. Once we were almost finished establishing a warlike atmosphere, it was then I had heard the voice once again. It was a voice quite far away. It was definitely looking at us. Survive. You honorable warriors. Survive. It's an honorable exam. Ducking custard. Honorable my ass. It wasn't like I had wanted a warm welcome like I did as a human, but as a joke, I felt that this was taken way too far. The reason was that there were countless beasts surging towards us. In perspective as a human, these were definitely monsters. Long-ranged tigers, iron-jaw leopards, steel-armed bears, all classified as monsters along with the greenskins. It seems they were living in this jungle. Though I'm not sure how these creatures were sent here, but it looks like that defeating these monsters was the exam. Raising my sword, I screamed. Meave. Yes. Meave, who started pulling back the bowstring simultaneously from my cry. Behind her were countless goblins pulling back their bowstrings. Fire. Shite. The ones that were struck by arrows stumbled for a bit, but their speed hadn't slowed down. Of course there were some that had fallen, but it was only a handful. Charge. Greenskins. Holding my grey sword, I rushed at these guys. I roughly knew how to wield this grey sword. I do have the compensation of evolving into a gladiator for proficiency, but I also remembered hearing stories and explanations from other warriors who had wielded the grey sword. There were 3 important aspects. First, efficiently using its reach. Second, to not mindless swing it. Lastly, to not be dragged from its weight. Since it is a weapon with a lot of weight, it was extremely important not to lose control. Withdrawing my sword, I quickly swung at the first long-ranged tiger before me. Whick. The sound of the slicing wind. The first thought that came into my mind. Imposing. It was dimensions apart from that scrap steel sword. Puck. The sound simultaneously accompanied the long-ranged tiger as it tumbled onto the ground. It wasn't a bad first attack, but the problem was that it did not cut. Of course the fact that the tiger had died was true, but it was my lack of skill that wasn't able to slice that fella into 2 pieces. Instantly, I slammed the hilt of my large grey sword onto the Russian beast from my side. You be like custard. Honestly, it did look like a bear. Anyhow, the oncoming number of beasts was quite many in numbers. With this much, it might be even more intense and fierce than the battle in the northern forest. But, we were definitely stronger. Our whole clan had evolved once more with that completed quest. Though I did not have a race evolution, but I'm an orc gladiator. To be devoured by these beasts would be extremely shameful as an orc gladiator by title. Once more, I swung down my grey sword. Puck. The head of the beast cracked along with the sound. Again, I saw the other beast leaping towards me. Releasing my grip on the grey sword, I drew my dagger out from my belt and thrust it into another beast's neck. Not bad. Pulling out the grey sword fixed firmly on the ground, I swung it widely at the rushing beasts. Kya. Before I knew it, I was screaming. Good. My body was flowing into the movement. To be honest, there were still a few disjointed movements which I was unsatisfied with, but the feeling overall wasn't too bad. It wasn't just because of the proficiency buff as a gladiator why I could fight like this. 10 years of experience. Experimenting with various weapons in order to live. All those traits I picked up along the way was contributing to my performance. Of course it's embarrassing to an extent to try and compare this to other existences. But it's joyful. Karyuk. My sightline reddened as my breath became rough. My body didn't betray my response. Quickly moving, I practically suppressed those beasts down thoroughly before me. I slowly began to inspect my surroundings. Everyone else was defending their position in their own way and style of battle. Excluding the archers and magicians, all the greenskins were advancing forward as if they were competing who would attain more achievements. Against beasts that couldn't be defeated one by one, they cooperated. The 3 superior goblin warrior siblings were in the midst of battling against 5 beasts. The first and second orc warriors were very bravely swinging their swords as well. Kya! For blood dagger. Grike. For blood dagger. I'm not sure exactly what kind of impression I left for them to shout my name, but the feeling wasn't bad at all. Rather, I felt more energized. Once more, I looked around. Gorf was indeed standing out amongst the guys. He was definitely strong. With 2 axes, he was continuously destroying the beasts' heads as if he was a berserker crazy for blood. The other greenskins that were in his clan were also those that admired bravery, so all of them had large frames. The ones that were in the front lines were busily clashing resolutely against the beasts with their axes and large swords. Even though they had sustained wounds, they didn't retreat. It's a bit funny to say this, but Gorf's clan and mine were well matched. As if a silent thief was looking on behind the warrior. Here and there, I began to see hobgoblins with dagger symbols drawn on their face. These guys too were beginning to understand how to efficiently kill their opponents. Instinct, rather than fighting with their brains. Likewise I's the same. The fight instinctively as an orc. Along with 10 years of experience assimilated, my efficiency in battle was quite significant. Pyuk. Victory or death. Boom. 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 It wasn't like all the greenskins went uninjured. But, we were definitely beginning to repel the beasts back. Soon, screaming, some of the beasts began fleeing. However, Junghian's plants were blocking their paths from escaping. Kya ha ha ha. An unknown orc seeing this began to excitedly laugh from this spectacle. Its eyes were already red. The fact that the battle was prolonged caused his yearning fang to open and laugh aloud. Soon, the boxed-in area of slaughter began. The battle ended, and those that were hungry were busily shoveling the flesh of the beasts in their mouths. Gorf, who was satisfied watching the scene, started to scream towards someone. And the honorable warrior's exam ends here. How dull. Kya ha. You call this an exam? Grike. Grike. He was definitely saying this to the hidden ones that were watching us. The goblins and orcs that were with Gorf displayed their teeth as they laughed. At this point, even I was quite relieved. Beasts of this level wasn't something that normal monsters could contain, I thought. If it were ordinary greenskins, then it's possible that over half of us would have been slaughtered, if not all. I was able to realize now why there were no monsters that was as weak as me. These greenskins weren't planning on dragging along weak monsters from the start. Impressive. You are strong warriors. The next exam is to discover the land of glory that the chief patriarch resides. Warriors. The voice that resounded once more. Despite being insulted, it was a voice that didn't shake. It seems that it was greatly alarmed by us. Or that it was controlling its anger. Hearing the voice as it is, it's probably the former. To hear that honest alarmed voice from the monster to call it a lie was extremely difficult. Rather, it was us that were trembling within our voices. Chief. Patriarch. It's the chief patriarch. Pyuk. It seems that the chief patriarch means a great deal to the greenskins and the monsters. Thanks to that, Gorf, as if he was bored, turned his back towards his clan members and began to approach them. Pyuk. The land of glory where the chief patriarch resides. We depart now. It seems that he was excited by the word chief patriarch. But, we can't depart immediately. I blocked Gorf as I opened my mouth. Pyuk. We won't depart immediately. Gorf. First, we need to settle these beasts and rest. What are you saying? It's the chief patriarch's exam. Blood dagger. We don't know just how far the land of the chief patriarch is. Gorf. We don't even know where this place is. It could be a path of long travel. We need to have our subordinates rest, find water and stockpile food before moving. That is a wise chief. This place has nothing but trees. We don't even know for sure where the land of the chief patriarch is. If it was close, it wouldn't be a problem to depart now, but it clearly said that the road to the land of the chief patriarch was an exam. It was highly probable that this chief patriarch was quite far away. Concluding my speech, Gorf was quietly gazing at me. Gradually raising his fangs up, he spoke. I understand. Blood dagger. Your words definitely hold some truth. Thank you. What you said to that voice earlier made me very refreshed. Gorf. Karyuk. Thanks. Then, Gorf including the other chiefs began screaming. Karyuk. We sleep for the night here and move. Blood dagger plan is to find water. Grike. Grike. Understood. Understood. Karyuk. After an intense battle, rest was mandatory. No matter how strong the greenskins were, accumulated fatigue wasn't easily recoverable. To all of you strong warriors, are you not moving? although the voice that was penetrating the trees was quite disturbing, but there was no need to hurriedly act. The greenskins, thus, began to chop down the trees with their axes, and with the leaves created a simple encampment. Despite no orders being passed down, everyone was busily searching for their own individual work. Even the Blood Dagger clan members that liked comfortable labor weren't being lazy. They were quickly searching the jungle and bringing back water from places, and created pouches from the leather of the dead beasts we hunted earlier. We were to store the meat elsewhere. As for the food, we precisely distributed it towards each of the tribes. This responsibility was left to the old goblin shaman. As for some, they began to lit a fire and cook the meat. Though they delighted in eating the meat raw, it seems they also took pleasure in eating cooked meat as well. If goblins had gathered like those group projects in university, there would never be any fights, I thought. That provocative voice soon stopped. From that, I was able to know that my assumption was right. This place was indeed an exam location. The monsters here were simple, but they were never stupid. For them to send us edible meat in the beginning, I couldn't help but think that it was some sort of gift prior to a long journey. I began to like that voice more and more. Once the atmosphere somewhat settled, the clan chiefs gathered and held a meeting. Blood Dagger Chiefs me, Gorf Clan's Chief Gorf, Dark Moon's Chief Dark Moon, and the other few clan chiefs whose names I haven't memorized yet. Payuk. By the way, for a chief patriarch. It seems there's a chief patriarch. To be honest, when it told us to find this orc chief patriarch out of nowhere, I was thinking what kind of bullpoo this was. I was questioning the purpose of finding this chief patriarch itself. But, in this culture, the chief patriarch name wasn't something to make light of. Roughly asking me about it, I was able to attain the information that the chief patriarch was an individual of awe and praise from all greenskins. In the end, even if that guy didn't ask us to find the chief patriarch, it was something that the greenskins will definitely want to accomplish. We might not be the first greenskins to come across this place. If so, then it's certain that there is a chief patriarch here. I want to meet this place's chief patriarch as soon as possible. Payuk. Right. But how do we know where this chief patriarch is? From Gorf and Dark Moon's conversation, I quietly opened my mouth. Probably the one that's monitoring us will guide us. Though I can't precisely feel it, but that fella is still here. The probability that his job to lead the greenskins as a guide is high. If not, leaving this dense forest first is for the best. Good. Afterwards, after more discussion on our future actions, we concluded our not-so-long meeting.